The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting group. Access Fort Wayne is a department of the Allen County Public Library. If you or anyone you know might be interested in making a television show, please call 260-421-1250.
Hi, welcome to Dr. Cashman's Mind, Body, Spirit show, connecting the mind and the body and your spirit. Today's show is about our memory. This will be, I think, very interesting, and it's actually full of good news. You can do things to keep a sharp memory into old age even. And when you just think about it, I mean, I'm 39 for the 45th time this year. So believe me, I think about it. A lot of my quotes will be, I've reviewed probably 30 books about it over the years, again and again. And today, I'm going to refer a great deal, because I think it's a good book. It just came out by Sanjay Gupta, a book here. I think it's an excellent book, and you see him on TV all the time. And since I've read a lot of other books, I know, what a good book is. And I agree with most of the things that he says, and I'll add a few things from other books, and I'll hold them up later, okay? So preventing memory loss, dementia. Then you hear something about Alzheimer's disease, even the most advanced type. A lot of that, frankly, can be avoided by following certain things which I'm going to teach you today. They talk about the genetic theory of memory loss, that you have the ApoE4 gene, that even people who have that, which is low, maybe 2% of the people or so, even they don't always express their gene by a proper lifestyle, for example. So let's work on having a good memory and avoiding bad memory problems. Let's look at the sunny side of the street instead of the dark side of the street. So I reviewed Sanjay Gupta's book, and Keeping Sharp at Any Age, and he confirms, which I've known for many years, that most of the memory loss that people are experiencing are due to their own medical problems. In other words, they could have avoided a lot of that by not getting type 2 diabetes in the first place, or just bad from eating bad food, for example, not exercising enough, maybe just vegetating too much behind the TV set. All things people teach you, and that's good news. That speaks of opportunity. So our brain is what makes you. How you think, how good a memory you have. What is it really? I'm a neurosurgeon, so I looked at the brain a lot. I operate on the brain a lot. So it's about a 3-pound piece of fat. It's 60% water. 60% water, yeah. And it has gyri, things that go up and down when you first look at it. And then sulci, which go deep. And the reason that nature did that is that you are able to store a lot more information with these gyri, instead of them coming straight across, for example, the cortex, which is the surface, by going down like that, you have a bigger playing field, okay? And when you look at it, like I did as a neurosurgeon, it's got a little thin membrane over it, and underneath of this is spinal fluid, okay, spinal fluid. And it looks like water, but it has a few chemicals in it, so it's not exactly water. And then you speak about the about the sulci, and then the gyri. You have the frontal lobe, that's the front part of it, and the side part would be the temporal lobes, and the back of the occipital lobes, and above that the parietal lobes. The back of the brain would be called the cerebellum, and then to the spinal cord. We didn't describe everything, but give you some, general idea. How many brain cells do we have? About 100 billion. About 100 billion. Some of us get more than others, and we lose some. Getting a day older, you lose some, but you can build them back up again. We have neuroplasticity. You can build new brain cells, but some people are born missing part of the brain the way they're born, or head injury, multiple concussions. The brain may shrink. You drink a lot of alcohol, that can really shrink the brain. I remember seeing patients who were heavy alcohol drinkers, and the brain would be that far off the skull, and still functioning, within reason. That always would amaze me. But alcohol is destructive to the brain cells. Not, 3 drinks a week or something. Wine mainly, maybe nothing shrinks. But alcohol is a toxin to the brain, so is nicotine. Not quite as bad, but it also does that. And how is the nervous system organized? You have 100 trillion brain cells, okay? And then they have protrusions from them called axons, okay? You have the nucleus in the cell. Then you have axons, say look like this. And then they kind of broaden out a little bit. Mind you, they're nano size, not what I'm saying here. And then there's a space. Okay, here's the axon, okay, and then there's a space, and these are dendrites, and they so the message has to be sent across to the dendrites by chemicals, okay, and they could be dopamine, serotonin, thousands of different chemicals, and this will really get you. Our memory is stored in these axons at the very tip. And they've seen them through electron microscope, these tiny little balls. These tiny, they look like a seed, except much smaller. They'll be about 200 or more at the end of each axon, and that is your memory. That is you. But to be honest with you, they've never determined where you really are at any one specific spot. And then you have all the axons and dendrites, trillions of them, trillions, all interconnecting and sending the message across. So the brain is very complex, very complex. And you get all these neurotransmitters and neuropeptides and hormones made in your body. They all intermingle, interaction you wonder that anyone is even sane. But a lot of the drugs work, for example, by preventing the absorption of these chemicals in there, so that the dendrite can't absorb them, and they're just collecting in here. So that's how a lot of the drugs work, or they stimulate the receptor. They can or turn the receptor off, for example. What about the size of the brain? Okay, I mean, when the baby's born, the brain is not fully developed. It's really not fully developed till age 25. Most of it occurs, 80% of it occurs by age 2. So when the baby's born, the head's a lot smaller than it's going to be a couple of years from now. That's why the baby isn't talking when it's born. Sure is crying, isn't it? Okay. So language development takes some time. What's the first organ developed when you're born, or even in the uterus? Baby still in the uterus, the first organ developed? The ear. That is, the ear is the first organ. And what's the last organ to develop? The brain. You could have guessed it. You could have guessed it. It's the brain. It's an elephant brain compared to body size is about 1 to 500, okay? Now, we are 1 to 40. So we, among the mammals, have the lowest ratio of brain to body. So our brain is very important. But self-awareness, we talked about that, is not one specific spot in the brain where we can find that. The brain is 60 to 70% water, okay? And it represents 2.5% of our body, but it uses 20% of our energy. So it's very high energy intense. What's the energy for the brain? Mainly glucose, but also can be ketones. Ketones are chemicals that are made from fat, goes to the liver, and the liver converts them to ketones. And if you're eating, say, mainly a high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet, the brain will run mainly on ketones, and it's very good at it. Very good at it. People actually think faster and better when they're in ketone metabolism. I'll tell you more about that as we go along. And so the impulses travel very quickly too, about 250 miles per hour. Okay, and very quickly. And that's maybe why when I'm playing pickleball, that I seem to catch up with the ball. So the brain's got to be seeing that as faster than blinking your eye, for example. And so visual images travel very quickly, faster than if you were to blink, for example. So there's a memory center in our brain called the hippocampus. Hippocampus. It's in the area moderately deep near the temporal parietal lobe, sort of shaped like this. And that's where is the main memory storage area. But it sends out a lot of messages for long-term memory, short-term memory, working memory. So it is complex. And about the way we have tests available today, PET scans, for example, you can measure the size of this hippocampus, the memory center. So before they let a London cab driver drive his cab, they make sure that he is, from memory, can tell where every street in London is. And they train him for a year. For a year. And they did a study where they measured their hippocampus beforehand, and afterwards they found out it enlarged. Very interesting. So now we can tell where the memories are located to a point, to a point, okay? And because you can see some scans of people at functional MRIs or CTs or PET scans, and look at them, you see the brain is shrunken to the patient's normal. So it isn't always a one-to-one relationship, okay? But it does give you some idea. So memory is the cornerstone of all learning, okay? And they have found, though, if you hear something, say, 6 times, it's much more likely to stick to your brain. And so your memory can be manipulated by medication, by things that you are taking, injuries, strokes. Just think of concussions. Just think of the football players. How many times that their head is injured and they're shaking it. You don't have to have visible injury that you know you've been hit by something to have injury to the brain. Yeah, I saw it once years ago as a neurosurgeon. A young girl came to the emergency room and she was unconscious. Brain was swollen, hemorrhages were everywhere. And I thought surely she had a ruptured aneurysm, did an angiogram, showed nothing. Then I went back and took some further history, found out the day before she had been skiing on one board at Lake Wawasee and had done a lot of turning. Now just think about it. Here you have a skull that's fairly solid, and you get a brain that's made out of fat and water, and after a while they're centrifuging each other and they're traveling at different speeds, and some of the veins and blood vessels got torn, and that's accounted for her injury. Fortunately, she made a good recovery, but will that have caused some changes and that would manifest itself as she gets older? I don't know. But very interesting. So you don't have to be hit in the head just the torsion forces alone can cause you a brain injury. Keep that in mind. So risky behavior is something you consider, especially if you're thinking of going skiing down the mountain, like my two neurosurgery sons did recently when I was in Aspen for a conference giving a lecture, and they're both coming down. I refused. To me, that's risky behavior. Fortunately, they did fine, but some people are not fine, because I know of one neurosurgeon who, fortunately not my sons, but not fortunate for the other guy either, who came down the mountain and hit a tree, and that was the end of him. So you got to think about behavior and your brain, okay? And so almost every part of the brain is partially specialized, but like the musical part of the brain, where's it at? It's a little bit more in the left parietal area, but it's all over the brain. Hearing more in the temporal areas. They found out cognitive decision making in the frontal lobe, for example, but cerebellum has a lot to do with coordination, but there's overlap. There's overlap. And so going back in history, in memories, that's interesting. Say 1,500, 2,000 years ago, you know who were some of the most famous and respected people? They were memorists. There would be people giving talks or speeches at a group of people that was meeting, and that person giving the talk would know the name of every person sitting in the audience. Mm-hmm. So they were called memorists, and they were known for that, and developed systems of improving your memory, ones that I don't think we need today, but you might want to use it. And they created what are called Roman rooms, where you would have a room totally memorized, everything in it totally memorized, and as you would enter the door, you would hang up your memories different places in the room, and you would always pick, say, one for verbs and adverbs, and you'd pick a certain spot, and you'd hang the memory there. So if you couldn't just come up with it, you go back to the Roman room, and it's sort of almost like the link system. When I hear a name, I try to link it to something, maybe their face, or maybe, and if you can link it to something emotional, you're much more likely to remember it. So when you're linking, I mean, look at it or hear it, okay? Link it to something, and then store it somewhere if you can. And those are memory systems. There are people called memorists in today's society who can remember, 1,000 numbers, 1,000 pictures, and what they do, they hook it to something, and they have studied some of these people, found out They had normal memories, just normal memories. What they did is they rehearsed a lot. They rehearsed a lot. Maybe that's why practicing pickleball or tennis or tap dancing, if I rehearse, or now with the virus, I'm practicing more piano. Guess who's getting better? So rehearsal is a big thing. So memory goes to encoding. You encode it, put it in the brain, then you store it. Okay, I mean it goes. You encode it by hearing or visualizing. Maybe repeat the word. It goes to the hippocampus, and then the hippocampus sends it out. And then if you're going to remember it, you just got to retrieve it. You know what's kind of interesting is that there's such a thing as called procedural memory. And as people get older, and even if they have serious memory problems from the names and places and stuff, procedural memory does not go to the hippocampus. It bypasses the hippocampus, and people are going to have a pretty serious basic memory problem, but still can play pickleball or tennis or golf or the piano or whatever, and have no problem whatsoever. That's procedural memory. So it's a good thing as you're getting day older to have some things that you get good at, because even if you get poor memory at age 99, you might be able to play that sport or play the piano, which is interesting. Yeah, Pablo Casal, for example, had a trouble memory problem at the end of his life, a musician. And someone was visiting him. This actually happened. And Pablo Casal was walking. He could barely remember the guy's name, and it just was terrible. But then he went to the piano, and he played like Mozart. And that seemed to change the brain somewhat. And then they took a walk, and it was fine. And then they came back home, and slowly Pablo Casal became the person that the guy met when he walked in. Very interesting. Music will do that also, because music causes secretion of dopamine, a feel-good hormone. So if you turn on music and someone with memory problems, especially if they have, say, Parkinson's disease, where they sort of get locked in, it's called locked-in syndrome. And there's a description in one of the books where these two guys were in this room in the hospital, and they'd been locked in like that from Parkinson's disease. And this doctor was walking with a nurse who had worked there for 50 years, and she threw in the switch, and music came on. And after a while, they looked back in the room where these two guys were. They're having a fist fight. They get unlocked by the music, which causes the secretion of dopamine deep in the brain, a feel-good hormone. But as soon as the music was turned off, they were frozen again. But it has been noted, and especially by myself, is that music can take people, say, living in rehab centers, nursing homes, okay, and they're just not acting good. And if you can bring music to them, they can get unlocked for a period of time, yeah, moving more, smiling more. And that won't just stop when the music stops. That'll last 2 or 3 days. I know, I've tried it. I've been to rehab centers, nursing home, and brought music to them. I used to play the music of Rendezvous. He's from Europe. And it worked with 2 or 3 days versus Parkinson's patients with the dopamine lasts about a day, isn't it? And isn't that very interesting? I mean, that's really very interesting. So we do have plasticity. We can develop new neurotransmitters, new molecules in the brain, and practice will do that. So practice is very important. So if you're trying something new, and as a child, you know, it's like that. They grow new brain cells much more quickly, although a children's brain does, about age 25, they start making brain cells too, except if they do something new, you'll build a new one. So practice is very important. And paying attention will encode a memory. For myself, for example, a busy neurosurgeon worried about life and death. I don't worry about names. So when people would give me their name, I pay no attention. A mistake, because I would not remember their name. I never heard it in the first place. So pay attention and encode it, repeat it, or write it down, or connect it to something, link it to something. You're much more likely to remember it. We have short-term memory and long-term memory. Most of the things that we hear, we forget in just in a few seconds, unless we pay attention to it, repeat it, or write it down. And that goes to the hippocampus. And the hippocampus decides what to do with it. And what to do with it is, decision is made really by you. If you're going to do some things that day, and a good idea might be to write it down or to repeat it, or if you use it, but then you'll quickly forget it unless you store it long term and make a decision that I need to memorize this, and you can do that by looking at it, hearing, or writing it down, for example, or saying it out loud a few times. And you get to focus. You got to pay attention to it. If you're not focused and listen to the name and repeat the name, obviously you're not going to remember it, okay? And for short-term memory, repeat it a few times. Alcohol interferes with memory big time, big time. Mm-hmm. If you had a few drinks and they give you a name, odds are you're not going to remember it, or an appointment, or whatever. Remember I said alcohol is very destructive of the brain cells. It kills them. I've looked at many brain that was shrunk from alcohol. Yeah, I mean, I could tell you stories that you could write a book on some of these patients that I would come to see intensive care, for example, and so how about retrieving it? Okay, but all of us have situations where I know this, I can't come up with it, but if you can get close to that memory in some manner, it will come back. One of the things they talked about in one of these books was about when the World Trade Centers came down in 2001, and what were you doing at the time? And I was so glad at those 39 for the 45th time. I know exactly what I was doing. I was standing in the mirror, putting on a tie, putting on my jacket, at Lake Wapsi, getting ready to go to work. And the TV was there, and I saw the coming down. I can visualize that scene exactly. So maybe at age 39, maybe not so bad. Okay, and there are many ways you can have some cognitive decline. Okay, and what they talk a lot about is amyloid, a protein in the brain. We all have some of that, and that can get sticky and is thought to cause Alzheimer's disease, which, remember what I said before, Alzheimer's disease is a small segment of the population. It was disease described by, it was a lady's name, Eloise, and she was described as having it, and it was a good description about 1910 or so, okay? About 1902, and it was described, and they looked at the autopsy, and they saw amyloid, what they call fibrillary tangles, which are amyloid protein interfering with nerve conduction, and then for some deposits of amyloid, they called it synapse plaques, tangles, and they called it tau proteins. And it was thought originally that was the cause of all memory loss. Well, they come to find out the researchers really spent a lot of time on that. And they said, we know the answer. It came from the big memory centers in California. we have the answer and all this sort of thing. Well, slowly they start backing off of that, because they realize that did not account for the majority of them. What I'm thinking today, for example, is that type 2 diabetes may be the cause of 50% of it or better of it. And one of the reasons is in type 2 diabetes, there's insulin, which pushes sugar in the cell. And if you have a lot of sugar in your body, which type 2 diabetics have, the sugar level goes up, is that insulin has to come in and push in the cells, but because the diabetic has insulin resistance, they can't do that. And the insulin level goes up all over the body. Remember, the brain uses sugar mainly under normal conditions for its source of energy. But remember, I also said ketones can be the source of your energy. Okay? But there's an IDA, insulin-degrading enzyme. IDA enzyme has to come in and degrade the insulin eventually. But because there's so much insulin in your body from the diabetes, there's not enough IDA enzyme around to degrade that, so the insulin level remains up, and it affects tau metabolism and insulin resistance in the brain. That's part of the Alzheimer thing. It's a paper I read a couple of years ago. So that's very interesting. So if people get rid of the type 2 diabetes, which you can do in 6 weeks, is something I teach a lot about. You can get it on my websites, YouTube, Rudy Cashman. You can hear about there. That decreases dementia rates tremendously, okay? Tremendously. So diabetes also causes vascular disease. Almost all vascular disease is due to diabetes. Yeah, almost all of it. 90% of it is due to diabetes. So avoiding diabetes would avoid vascular dementia. They'll talk about that. That vascular disease maybe accounts 25, 30% of memory loss. And so we talked about alcohol and nicotine and drugs affect the memory tremendously. And also, here's a good one for you. What can you do about this one? It's easy. It's gum disease. Yes, gum disease will cause inflammation in the brain. It will cause dementia. Yeah, what causes gum disease is due to sugar metabolism. The majority of the time, the kings and queens, they almost had no teeth, most of them, because they only ones could afford sugar. They'd have gum disease, and they have a high rate of dementia. And so I think, I tell you a good habit, and I had some dental problems over the years because my parents never taught me how to brush my teeth. I didn't learn to brush my teeth till I was at IU, so I lost some teeth here and there, had some infections here and there, but now, for about 20 years now, I've been brushing my teeth twice a day. Don't have to go to the dentist, hardly at all. It's when I start doing it in the morning, take a shower in the evening before I go to bed. That's almost stopped all my dental problems. I don't know. I don't see dentists on TV pushing brushing your teeth. Okay, so they may have other ideas, but I say brushing your teeth, flossing, fine. Teach your kids, teach your children, because memory loss, I think, is partially related to that, and that's in a number of books. In other toxic substances that you might get too exposed to. I mean, it can be lead in the water, for example, toxic substances. So inflammation can play a big part, like virus and bacteria, but where are they found? In your teeth, in your teeth. And they can also, besides going to your brain, they can go to your heart. A lot of people with heart disease have dementia problems. Don't you wonder whether or not heart disease, gum disease, brain disease, they're all interrelated, and so most of the memories, long-term memories, are stored on the surface of the brain in the cortex, okay? But underneath that, you have something called the glia, which are the immune system of your brain. So they clean out a lot of debris out of the brain. Incidentally, after you eat, for example, it's a good idea if you would not go to bed for 3-4 hours so the blood in your body can go to your gut, and your friend, the biome there, can digest your food, so when you do go to bed, then your blood system is free to work on your brain. You know, with the 5 stages of sleep, which I talked about in the last lecture. But actually, our brain at that stage, in the beginning stage of sleep, will cleanse the brain. It gives it a wash. That's been scientifically proven. The brain shall shrink a little bit, so spinal fluid, the spinal column, which has a lot of spinal fluid at the base of the brain, over the brain, spinal fluid can come in and remove dead brain cells, dead neurotransmitters, cleanse the whole system. In the morning, you're wide awake, feeling great, your memory's good, ready for your cup of coffee to make it feel even better. Coffee, 1 or 2 cups actually is okay. Improves your mood, your neurotransmitters, actually improves your memory. It is mine. It is mine. But don't drink coffee after noon because you won't be able to sleep that night. Okay, so we can have buildup of amyloid and tau, which does indeed make the brain sticky, but it's not the whole thing, okay? And professional football players, of course, they had huge lawsuits, and they're all doing it now. 2 or 3 years of getting the head banged, and then they sued the Football League for having been hit in the head for a profession they chose, in spite of having helmets on. But when you look at the people that have severe memory loss, age 60, a football player, most of them are real big guys. So what do you think they got? Diabetes, if properly tested. Incidentally, the proper test for diabetes is not just a blood sugar. It's a serum insulin. Insulin is the driver of dementia, vascular disease. Get serum insulin throughout the medical profession. We're not checking for serum insulin. It's a mistake. Look at my websites. It's well scientifically proven. I'm doing another TV show shortly, and that'll be on stopping, preventing, reversing diabetes. And I talk a lot about insulin. So as we get a day older, we're going to start missing a few words, no doubt about it. But it's not a disease. Yeah, we can have what's called cognitive impairment, okay, CHI. We start missing a few words before that. That's normal. That's not a disease. But you can delay that by nutrition and exercise and rehearsal and in practicing. I'm not sure that any of the drugs or supplements work. Maybe vitamin D has some value, but the rest might work. You see them on TV all day long. They might work for a few weeks. If they work at all, I'm not going to get involved with that. That's up to you and your doctor and your own thought process. And so the brain develops in a child till age 25 or so, okay? And then we start dropping out a few brain cells as years go on. And at age 65, it almost doubles. And at age 80, the number of brain cells we lose is huge. But you could have actually still have a good memory at the time because of neuroplasticity, because you are doing things that improves it. And that's where exercise come in. Remember what I said, what I said, like for exercises, that bypasses the hippocampus. It doesn't stop it. And you're much more likely to keep an excellent memory for the things that you're doing, and some of that will spread out to other more non-procedural memory things you might have problems with. So exercise is really the biggest preventer of memory loss, okay? And so the key word here is how can you help prevent it, okay? So neurogenesis, vascular disease is less. You make new connections, new brain cells, more connections, important. And you got to avoid this type 2 diabetes with its enzymatic activity that increases brain loss. Remember that IDA enzyme, for example? So we can have mild cognitive impairment, MCI. Not everybody gets it, but how is it defined? You can still manage your routines. You're missing a few words. You forget the keys now and then. So about 20% of people age 65 and over have it. Then we have, remember, it's about dementia from vascular disease, but again, type 2 diabetes almost causes all vascular disease. It's because the insulin punches a hole in the capillaries, and then the fat comes on top of that, and you get narrowing of the blood vessels. And among the first areas affected are hearing and the heart, the retina, and memory. The other types of dementia too, FTLD, frontotemporal lobar dementia, Pick's disease is called. That's only 10% of the cases. And this book says Alzheimer's disease is 60 to 80%. I don't agree with that. No. The true genetic Alzheimer's disease, which starts age 30, 35 or so, and I'll go through that with you in a minute, are not common cases. What I think the researchers have confused, that most people with diabetes start having their side effects in their 30s and 40s, and they would be having memory loss at that young age, and all of that could be prevented by getting rid of type 2 diabetes. How long does that take? 6 weeks. Eat a nutrient-dense diet and go a bit into fat metabolism. Well described in a book that just came out in December. Greatest book to read, Gary Taubes here. The case for ketones, remember, the fats that converted to ketones that can give energy to your brain and your body. And when you metabolize them ketones, your serum insulin, blood sugar are just like that. Insulin is very low, but your blood sugar is just like that. And you feel great, very energetic, okay? And so what's normal, what's abnormal? Absent-mindedness, it's normal, okay? You might say, well, geez, I'm going to get a genetic test of Alzheimer's disease. Remember what I said? I know of people who are living into the role because they get a genetic test. Oh, honey, you got Alzheimer's disease. And from then on, he gets treated completely differently by his friends and relatives, and he or she spreads the word to the neighbors. He's got Alzheimer's disease. They don't come to see him anymore. They don't trust him anymore. They can't do his hobbies anymore. Don't live into the disease. Sometimes it's indicated, but don't, like that advertised on TV, get a genetic test, find out if you get Alzheimer's disease. Very small number of people where the genes make a difference, and even if you get the genes, you can develop habits to avoid the disease. But why not just have good habits and forget about the genetic test? And it's expensive too, incidentally. And we need to focus on avoidance, linking exercising good nutrition, for example, and the way I teach it is, frankly, is low sugar, moderate protein, 50% fats, good fats. Find out what good fats are. Actually, to read Gary Taub's book, The Case for Keto, I think is absolutely the latest. It came out recently. What he says is correct. It's what I've been teaching to begin with. I like confirmation. He's just confirming what I've been teaching in the first place. So let me tell you some of the symptoms of what people, remember I said there are a few cases where people started getting memory loss in their 30s and 40s, and they don't have diabetes. Rule out diabetes, get serum insulin test. They don't have that. So let me tell you a few symptoms. Changes in personality and behavior, difficulty with language, difficulty with skilled movements. Remember, they can't play pickleball and tennis anymore. Difficulty recognizing familiar faces and places. Difficulty with executive functions, okay? And here's another 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's disease. Remember I said that's not the majority of them. Majority of people living in a nursing home got dementia from diabetes because someone taught them how to get rid of it. 6 weeks, you can get rid of it. But 10 warning signs of ALZ. Memory loss that affects job skills, difficulty performing familiar tasks, can't do the dishes, can't cook a meal. Problems with language, disorientation to time and place, don't know what day it is, what time it is. Misplacing things, changes in mood and behavior, changes in personality, loss of initiative, don't want to go to work, don't want to follow my hobbies anytime. Then things undoubtedly are more serious. Putting the iron in the fridge, difficulty reading, understanding the newspaper, forgetting the month for the year, getting lost in one's own neighborhood, confusion with simple numbers and daily calculations, rapid changes in mood from laughing to just crying. Well, now we're talking about an advanced situation. No doubt that is advanced. I got this out of a book called The Memory Cure. I think it's an excellent book for you to read too, because these are serious long-term problems, and I'm sort of got you onto second base. But if you do, I would suggest reading that too. But read that Gary Taub's book, because make sure, because if you get diabetes, you can get it in 6 weeks, and your memory, and then practice these habits, your memory would improve. Okay, and so we have 6 senses that we talk about, hearing and seeing, and so we think maybe 5 or so, but we have many more senses, and I want you to be aware of them, okay? So the brain is kind of a mystery, okay? And they'll say older people are doomed to forget. That's a destructive opinion, okay? They're not doomed to forget. It's just if you don't practice good health habits, good hobbies, for example, too, exercise, well, it's going to happen, but it's not because you're old, it's because you didn't do any preventative stuff. Another falsehood, dementia is inevitable. No, it's not inevitable. You can have a very good memory into old age. It's going to change a little bit, but if you practice good health habits, eat right, exercise right, socialize is a big one. Good dental care is a bigger one. Maybe having a hobby, having a purpose in life is a big one. I feel so lucky myself at age 39 for the 45th time that I have a purpose in life. I'm helping other people get well. I read about a TV show, radio shows about pickleball, tennis, tap dance, all hobbies that I have a purpose. Does that mean I live to be 200? I don't think so. But I'm doing the best that I can. I'm not sitting around watching TV or worry about, the things other people are worrying about, okay? And things I'll tell you, too, is that older people can't learn new things. Wrong. Read, practice, repeat, learn some memory tricks, linking, repeating, writing things down. People will say that we're only expressing 10% of our brain. Well, that's wrong. A lot more. The male and female brains are a lot different. They're a little bit different, but not a lot different, okay? Women actually have higher rates of dementia, though, than men. Yeah, that's been studied, and part of that is probably we have 50 hormones in our bodies, and theirs are different to men and women. Maybe that's got something to do with it. Maybe it's that they have more responsibilities, maybe because they have more stress. Stress is a big one and interferes with memory. So to learn about doing things to reduce stress is helpful. And they'll say that you're mainly a right brain person or left brain person. That's really not true. And you have other senses, proprioceptions, where you tell, where your joint is located. And then we have equilibrium perception, sense of balance, okay? It's like a GPS system in our body, okay? We have nociception, where we can appreciate pain. We have thermoception, where we can tell the temperature. Chromoception, a sense of time. I really think I have chromoception. I have a little trouble sleeping because my cats will lay over here and then over there, and this goes all night long. I love them too much to change that. But I'll say, well, it must be 3 o'clock. I look at my watch, it's 3 o'clock. So I think we get chromoception, okay? And interoception, sense of hunger, for example. I just want you to know we have more than 6 senses that we have. And so another myth is that you were born with all the brain cells you have. No, you can build new ones by doing things, by practicing things. And so what are the secrets of superbrainers, okay? To build a bigger hippocampus and a bigger green matter. The beautiful thing is, what the beautiful thing is? It's mostly related to lifestyle. What you do. Are you reading? Are you exercising? Are you doing new things, playing a sport or doing puzzles? You can build your brain. They found computer games don't really build the brain that much, but they do help some, okay? And but the biggest thing is to keep a sharp brain. Movement is what's important. Aerobic, anaerobic exercise with oxygen, without oxygen, both are important. So try to break a sweat every day. But some people don't sweat. I play pickleball almost every day. I don't sweat. Other people are sweating. That's just me, but it's an hour and a half. So I'm exercising, hopefully building a little bit of brain power. So discover, relax, nourish, connect, all things that help build a good brain for you. Just don't. I see some families say, well, everybody's diabetic, and they think they inherit it. No. They're eating the same food. Listen to that, okay? Be open-minded. Don't be like I see some political people now. They're just blind, okay? They're just blind. And look at it realistically and say, I'm going to get rid of this. Rudy says I can get rid of and use Rudy's brain gym. Okay, that's on the computer. You can see it there too. Different things that you can do to keep a sharp brain. You can find that on the internet. So most people, 50%, don't know the risk of dementia. Most people out there have no idea that Alzheimer's disease is guaranteed. It's not. 80% of the time it's created. Okay, and about over age 80, about 30% have dementia, maybe 80% are diabetic. How you can find out if you have diabetes? I don't have diabetes, although I see them, that weigh 200 pounds. My blood sugar was normal. Get a serum insulin test, serum insulin series, glucose tolerance test, insulin tolerance test. Then you know whether you have it or not, because elevated insulin occurs 20 years before we Americans are diagnosing diabetes. Yeah, it's a government, medical, we doctors, I think, are partly at fault, a scam. Yeah, that's the reason I do a half hour on diabetes on public access every week. You can see me for free at the Three Rivers Pharmacy, and I will get rid of your diabetes 6 weeks if you do what I ask you to say. It's type of food. It's not starvation. It's not pills. So it's lifestyle, miracle of movement. And it's been scientifically proven, there's science behind it, that moving helps the brain more than any other thing. It's been highly scientifically proven. So pace of aging, picks up at age 65 or so, and age 80 and 90. Memory loss problems increase in rate, but how much of that is due to that they're not moving anymore, they're not working, they're not socialization is a big one. What tests can be helpful, but again, don't live your test, don't live into the role. PET scans are helpful. They show the brain function, and maybe any vitamins that are helpful, maybe vitamin D, maybe some others, but some of these books will list the others. So sitting is the new smoking. Avoid sitting disease. Again, that's movement. So in summary, I think I've handed you tonight a very helpful message that you're not guaranteed to have memory loss, dementia, Alzheimer's disease, which I think is a very small number. That 80% of what I've been talking about tonight can be prevented. So look at my TV shows, maybe read a couple of books I recommended, and you can live to be 100, like I plan to, I hope to. And maybe come out and play me in pickleball. We'll see who wins, or discuss this with me. But remember, my basement's got in it 1,500 books. Why am I doing this today? I love you. I care about you. Watch my other shows. Namaste.